Welcome straight back into the video. Today's video is what if Scott and Duncan swap seasons. So let's begin. So, right off the bat, Duncan is not here, so Scott takes his place on the killer bass. Okay. So, in episode 2, because Scott's whole strategy is basically throwing challenges, Izzy and Katie swap teams. Scott would purposely not jump because he would be afraid of acting like he would act afraid. I think the Gopher is still in the challenge because Scott would be slowing his team down. And I think Ezekiel would still say his comment because Scott would want to keep him around, but I think Zeke's still out here. So episode 3, Scott would have Tyler on his side, Katie, Sadie, and Harold, and would realize those 5 would be very easy to manipulate and keep around. Courtney she's bossy. And I think Heather still steals Eva's MP3 player. I think Scott notices, but he's not going to say anything. And Eva still gets herself voted off. Episode 4 is Dodgeball. So Noah refuses / doesn't compete. And Scott would do awful on the challenge. But the big reason they won was because of Harold. And because of Duncan. But because Duncan's not here, I think the killer last week's the challenge. Which is Scott's whole thing. And I think Tyler, he left after for the challenge. But Courtney, it's Courtney. But Scott's not just let Tyler get eliminated, right? You see, Scott needs Tyler because he's doing awful in the challenges. So I think Tyler goes. I think Scott gets everyone to vote for Tyler because he left halfway through the challenge, and he did awful. And Tyler could easily be a very easy scapegoat for him. Episode 5, the talent show. So Bridget throws on everyone. Harold still wins the challenge, and I think Heather gets eliminated because Noah would vote for Heather. Episode 6 is Sucky Outdoors. Okay, so Katie get lost. I think Scott would make everyone do a search party, and I think Katie still gets eliminated. Episode 7, Phobia Factor. So Courtney fails. Scott loses to Fang. Sadie passes. Harold fails. Bridget fails. Jeff fails. DJ passes. Justin fails. Backward pass. Cody fails. Sean fails. Lindsay passes. Izzy passes. Owen and Noah's Dolls fails. And I think everyone gangs upon Courtney because she's the biggest threat that's not immune. And because Tyler's not here to be a human shield, there's no reason for Courtney not to go. So, episode 9, 8. Harold stacks the against the yours, or it'll be Scott, if he still gets chased down by this RMP. Episode 9, bit more deer hunter. Cody gets mauled by a bear. Actually, no, he wouldn't because Heather's not here. So, Justin, Lindsay, and Beth are in an alliance. And Noah notices Justin's a threat. And I think Gwen, Trent, Shauna, Owen, Cody, and Justin are here. TJ and Scott's are here, so I think Scott will be throwing, and I think the Gophers lose the challenge, and I think they have the numbers. Owen's not going to betray Noah, but he doesn't want to vote for Justin, and I think they vote for Beth, because Beth has the Tiki statue. I think she goes. Episode 11, 10, the cooking challenge. I think Jeff is head chef, which Scott would think is a good idea. And Noah. and Owen still eats the ribs. So I think the Gophers lose the challenge, and I think Owen eats the ribs. So they lose. Episode 11. So episode 10 is Who You Can Trust. So Gwen and Justin. Jeff DJ, Scott, Bridget, Trent, Lindsay. Now I think Scott DJ, so I think Scott would purposely drop the rope. And I think this would send DJ in the infirmary. But he would act like it was an accident. Then Trent gets in the infirmary. Sadie, Harold, Oshana, Cody, Owen, Oshana. Blanche Breeze is Harold, Bridget, Noah, Lindsay. Noah gets sent to the infirmary. And then DJ wouldn't have his bunny because he's not here. Scott and Jeff. And then it's Scott and Jeff, Justin, Owen, or Shauna. And Scott would act like he's scared, so he'd purposely lift up his mask. And I think the Killer Bass still lose the challenge. Right, so they lose. And Scott has Sadie and Harold, right? But Scott goes to DJ and says that Jeff would choose his girlfriend in the end. And he says to DJ that Jeff told him to lift up his mask. And I think he would convince the people, say, no, instead of getting rid of Jeff, let's get rid of Bridget. So I think so these three vote for Scott, and the other three vote for Bridget. And in that tiebreaker, I'm pretty sure Bridget will lose. Okay. I feel like they vote for Sadie. Scott will convince them to vote for Sadie because she's the most useless in the challenge. And she would complain, Harold, but I don't know, Harold complains. Episode 11, Who You Can Trust. Okay. Actually, okay, so DJ is the one to lift up his mask at the end of this challenge, and Scott would convince everyone to vote for DJ. So I think DJ goes. Episode 11. Actually, no, the eating challenge. This is the eating challenge. In the eating challenge, I think Owen would eat the ribs, so he goes. Who You Can Trust. Okay. DJ and Scott are at the end of this challenge. I think DJ still has up his mask because of his bunny being missing, because there's no Duncan. Scott notices that Jeff and Bridget lost it. Now, Scott would tell DJ that Jeff lost his bunny, and when DJ tries to confront Jeff, Jeff would deny it and would try to, comfort him. And I think because how annoyed DJ would be, I think something primal would be in him, similar to how it was when he went off the roof. I think Jeff is eliminated. Episode 12. Bridget is surprised that DJ voted for Jeff, but DJ says that he thought Jeff was his friend, but now he thinks it's Scott, which Bridget is suspicious of. I think in basics training, the Gophers win the challenge because Gwen said you won the original. And I think Scott has Harold and Sadie and says to them, it's time to vote for Bridget. Episode 13, Extreme Torture. I think it's Trent, DJ, Trent, LaShawna, Sadie, Harold, Lindsay. So I feel like the Killer Bass would win. And I think it's only Lindsay and the rest vote for Justin. And basically it's guys versus girls. But it's nominations. And we're at the merge. So I think we have to bring back 2 people. So Eva and Izzy return, and Eva loses after Shauna wins the challenge. Episode 16, Scott wins immunity. And I think Noah's kind of suspicious of Scott. Scott has DJ, Harold, and Sadie. I think it's a 4-person line, so Scott has Lindsay, so it's 4 votes. But Noah realizes that these 4 are in an alliance. So I think Noah's working on Izzy. So these 6 have majority. And they go for D. And everyone goes for Izzy because she's the biggest threat. It's not immune. So they vote her off. Episode 17. Highly sneaky. I think Shauna wins the challenge. And I think Scott calls out DJ on the roof. So DJ's annoyed at Scott for voting him off, but Scott would say it was a genuine accident. And I think they still have majority at this point. And I think they vote for Harold. Because most people don't see it. Harold is a huge threat. I think Noah kind of realizes, you know what? I need to get rid. He's like, you know what? I think these 4 are starting to realize that once these guys are gone, I could be next. Episode 18 is the bike race. I think Cody wipes out. Scott sabotaged everyone's bikes. So Gwen wipes out. Sadie, Noah, DJ, Charlotte. So Lindsay could definitely make it across. So between Trent and Scott, I think Scott would purposely wipe out, and I think she had an unfair ruling. Trent's out. Episode 19, Hellfire Screamer, and it's still DJ. Episode 20 is Wakanda Gone Wild, and I think the winner is Gwen. So Scott convinces Lindsay and Sadie to vote Shauna. And Noah. He's doing vote Scott. Noah's the swing vote, so I think Noah does vote Shauna, even though Scott is devious. I think he'd rather they go for Scott. Episode 21 is Guys vs. Girls, so it's Shauna, Noah, Sadie, Gwen, Cody, Lindsay. Cody, Gwen, Lindsay, Sadie, Shauna, Noah. Alright. So, eating challenge, Gwen, Cody. Respite Island, Gwen, Cody. Remember they're stronger, Noah, Shauna. Gwen, Cody with immunity. It's popular vote at this point. Sadie goes. S22 is still a Shauna. 23 elevation. S24 is Guys vs. Girls. So Noah would use a small to get to the end. And Cody, and I think Chef Chris choose Lindsay over Gwen because would choose Lindsay. Choose Gwen. 5. I think Noah goes because I don't think he has much to do against Gwen and Cody. They're tag team. Gwen and Cody in the finale. Neither of them would sacrifice the prize money because they would know what Chris would do with it, so the Simulator I think so would have gone at this point. So now we go straight into Troll Drama Revenge of the Owl. So Duncan's introduction is the same and he's brought to the rats. And the rats technically agrees to battle luck, and there's still no reason for Stacy not to get voted off because I don't think Duncan would try to meet someone who'd get voted off here. In episode 2, I feel like Duncan would try to make an alliance with someone. I think he goes for Lightning, and I think he would see B and Dawn as good options. I think Duncan would be really good in the obstacle course challenge, but I think the results stay the same and Dakota gets voted off. Okay, now we have some actual changes in the timeline. Because Scott isn't here, B would do his mirror strategy, which Duncan would kind of applaud. And I think B would end up winning the challenge, sending the maggots to elimination. in my mind, for Joe and Brooke, there are two candidates at this point. That's Cameron and Amaria. But Joe works on Cameron in this episode, Amaria this episode, but then stops halfway in this episode. So I do think everyone votes for Amaria, with Mike and Zoe voting for Joe, and I think Cameron realizes that Joe is a bit too useful to get rid of. So that's 3 on Joe. And Maria votes Joe, so I think Joe's eliminated. So 4 is the top. It's basically where they have the scavenger hunt. So I feel like Dawn would be very close friends with Duncan. I think Duncan would kind of find her strange, but I think he would like. I feel like Duncan and Dawn. I know, something just telling me Duncan and Dawn and B would like the opposite of the golden trio, like the fun trio, and Lightning's like their. I feel like Duncan and Lightning would get along pretty well, and because there's no Scott, and Brick doesn't ever have to turn around, so Brick gets captured. Mike and Zoe and Maria making out their episode. Cameron gets caught. I think then Mike saves Brick. Sam and Duncan are together. B is tied up from everyone. Dawn gets captured. And I think Sam gets caught. Lightning gets caught by his boss ball. I think between the rats and the maggots, I think the maggots would get out a lot faster than the rats, sending the rats to elimination. And Duncan would get Dawn and B and Lightning to vote for Sam. However, this is an elimination, so Sam is put onto the maggots team. And we in the episode 4. Episode 5 is Backstabbers Ahoy. I think the Duncan's shot would be way off, so I think Duncan would be able to win the challenge for his team. So I think B and Dawn, Lightning drives, Brick drives. And because Brick's like takes Sir and Madam, and it's more about taking commands, because Brick's not really a team leader. But I do think Brick would try to take charge. But the absence of Joe. And I think the rats win the challenge. And the maggots get rid of Sam because his brain's gone to mush. Episode 6, I think Dawn would win the challenge because she can just talk to the Yeti. So I think Dawn could just talk to the Yeti and win the challenge. I think Zoe, Mike, and Cameron vote for Anne-Maria because they're a lot closer to Brick. And, you know, she's putting their relationship in jeopardy. Episode 7 is Am I a Terrible Thing? So Dawn and B would be pretty good here with Duncan. A Lightning would say Shawa. I forgot to do the team swap. And Brick would swap teams. Now, I think the other person between Dawn, B, and Duncan is going to be Duncan. So Duncan and Brick swap teams, which really upsets Dawn and B. And I think Duncan would say it's cool that he'll be back soon. Episode 7. I think the winner of the challenge is episode 7. Alright. That's trouble things. Brick's still afraid of the dark. Dawn's comforting him. There's no rats, so there's nobody gets captured by Ezekiel. I think because Brick would never sacrifice himself as tribute, save these four, I do think the rats would win the challenge. And I think Mike, Zoe, and Cameron are going to vote for Duncan, which is unfortunate because I love Duncan as a character. Oh, it sucks. It really does suck. Duncan's out here. Episode 8, Dawn is devastated that Duncan is eliminated. And B is comforting her. I think Brick would also comfort her. I think that first part of the challenge play the same. I think the rats win. So the second part of the challenge is taking cross dams. Now because there's no Dakota's Life for the maggots and pressure around the bush, I think the rats win the challenge. And they vote Cameron. And they're at the merge. Okay. So, Grand Theft Auto. I think Lightning is kind of working with them. So Dawn will get B until Lightning plays to make, a former Rats alliance, which they're all for, to get around the couples, right? Brick still wins the challenge, though, because I think he's very good at his military training. And I think between Lightning B, Dawn, Mike, and Zoe, I think he goes for Lightning. And I think Lightning is eliminated because Brick doesn't have a vendetta against anyone else. He wouldn't have a vendetta on anyone on the team, but I think if somebody has to go, it's going to be the biggest threat being Lightning. Episode 10. I think this episode doesn't change. I think the winner is going to be Brick. Helicopter, I think, Zoe, Brick wins immunity. B, Dawn. Vote Mike. Mike, Zoe, vote B. And Brick is the swing vote. Now he votes for Zoe. Vote for Mike because they're a couple. Mike and Zoe are a couple. I think they would realize it's a mistake to let a couple get this far. So they're gonna vote for Mike. Episode 11, I think, is the Eat Puke Me Worry. So I think Dawn would win the first part of the challenge and Brick wins immunity. So I feel like Brick and Zoe would work together to vote for Dawn. And then B and Dawn vote for Zoe. And I think Brick votes for Zoe. Because, however, Dawn has the immunity idol at this point. So I think she plays it on Zoe. I thought it'd be interesting to use that in this story because she had a fake one in the original, so I thought it'd be kind of interesting that Dawn gets Zoe eliminated. She wouldn't want to because she's friends and likes Zoe, but Brick's immune, so that's the only option she has. She's not on Traby. Episode 12 is the map challenge. So, where they have to do the map. Okay. So I think B and Dawn are trying together. Brick would do alright here. And he would sacrifice himself to get the fire plant, right? So Dawn wouldn't get attacked by the fire plant because she can, B and Dawn would be together. So Brick would still do a map to save them. So third place is Brick. So B and Dawn are in the finale. I've never had B and Dawn in the finale, which is funny because Scott got rid of them both. And they each get winning endings. So this is the emotional order. And Duncan's with Dawn. I kind of think Dawn would win the season. That's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and yeah, peace for all.